Can malware infect other computers on my network? Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. Here's the actual question I got. Can malware go from one computer through the router to another computer in the house? Yes. Yes, it can. There are, in fact, classes of malware that are designed specifically to travel from machine to machine across networks. Remember, the internet is just a network. So the same techniques that malware might use to try and hop from machine to machine on the internet, if unimpeded by something else, can be used to hop from machine to machine on your local network. Your router, while it is an important security device, does not protect the machines on your local network from one another. The router's job, besides sharing your internet connection, is to protect the machines on your local network from that malware out on the internet that's trying to hop from machine to machine. It prevents that malware from reaching your machine. However, if the malware makes its way onto your network some other way, say by having been downloaded explicitly, or you've opened an attachment accidentally that you shouldn't have opened, or some other means, then that malware can exist on what's normally considered to be the safe side of your network, and indeed hop from machine to machine. So the router in this particular case isn't really going to help you. For the most part, for example, my local area network here, I trust all of the machines on the local side. I don't take any additional precautions other than the default configuration of the various operating systems that I have installed. One of the things that is important to do if you don't trust some or all of the machines on the local side of your network is to turn on a firewall. And in fact, most operating systems today have that firewall turned on. If you are even more concerned, I have articles on exactly how to protect yourself from other machines on your local network. It does involve using a second router to do pretty much what that first router of yours is doing, protect the machines on one side of the router from the other. Now, I do want to point out that the risk generally isn't as big a deal as you might imagine. Machine-to-machine transmission of malware relies on unpatched vulnerabilities. In other words, it's not supposed to be able to happen. And in fact, when all the software is working properly and the software is up to date, it can't, because there would not be any unpatched vulnerabilities. However, if one is discovered or one is created, in the time between that discovery and the creation of the patch to block the problem, yes, there's an unpatched vulnerability. Make sure to keep your system up to date. As I mentioned, most machines usually have their firewall on by default already. That's great, and that actually does mitigate a fair amount of this kind of machine-to-machine transmission. The firewall blocks basically almost any attempt to connect to your machine that the machine didn't initiate. And finally, you know better, right? These are the kinds of things we talk about a lot. When you are keeping your software up to date, when you're practicing good internet hygiene, these kinds of things generally don't happen. One last tidbit, don't really worry that much about machine-to-machine transmission if the machines are of a different kind. In other words, malware usually tries to infect the same kind of machine that it's on. Windows to Windows, Mac to Mac, Linux to Linux. If you've got a mix of machines, then there's a very good chance that Mac to Windows, Windows to Chromebook, Chromebook to Linux, those kinds of things are very, very, very unlikely to happen. But as always, there really aren't any guarantees. Always keep your system up to date, practice good internet safety habits, and you'll be safe. For updates, for related links, for comments, and more, visit askleo.com/144126. I'm Leo Notenboom. This is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.